Hi, everyone. Welcome to A New View. I'm Shira, and I'm here with Kim, Lee, and Juji. We are four friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. Today, we're talking about something I find fascinating: lying. Why we do it, when we do it. I mean, clearly none of you has ever lied, right?
Never.
Never. I find this to be a really fascinating subject as well, because it's really hard to admit when you have lied. So I find this topic a little bit easier today because I can look at it in hindsight and really re-examine how I used to approach things. And part of what I've been unlearning is trying to control other people's images of me. And I see the way that I used to behave as a very manipulative approach, which often involved little white lies here and there, to deflect, to maybe point fingers at somebody else who didn't actually do anything. But it was definitely my way of avoiding confrontation with other people. And when that is how you live your life, suddenly bigger lies don't seem like such a big deal either. So there came a point in my life where we talk about this all the time. I went to Landmark, and they talk a lot about integrity. And they talk about how your words really matter and the way that you speak to people really matter. And I just remember promising myself then and there that I wasn't going to lie anymore. Like, even if it was hard, even if the truth would hurt somebody, it's better to be honest than to lie, because in the long run, it is going to hurt somebody probably more than if you were just upfront right away and let them know where you're at, or, divulge something that they might not want to hear at that time. Like, I can't control everything. And it really was an attempt to control everything, including the way that other people reacted. So, it's been a journey. It's not like I snapped my fingers and one day I was like, not a liar anymore. But I remember being like, why do I default to lying all the time? It was like almost an addiction that I had to kick because it was so pervasive in everything I did. That's hard to admit, but it's true.
What kinds of things, like in your business, like everything, relationships, business, whatever?
Well, everything, yes, but in my business was a really good example because I used lies to make it seem like I was being more successful than I was. And my husband had no idea the state of my business at the time. And
your ex-husband.
My ex-husband, there's a reason for that, right? Like, when you sit your significant other down and you reveal to them that for the better part of 3 years, they haven't been privy to the truth about something, it puts a big damper on your relationship, and it's one thing to say, like, you have to present a certain way on social media, but it's another thing to say, like, yeah, but the person who's sleeping next to me doesn't get to know the truth about what's really going on. So there's a little bit of like fake it till you make it, and then there's the like, who needs to know this information?
That's so, well, thank you for sharing that, Juji. I had no idea about that with you, but it's funny, and I have so much to say about this topic. to begin with, we've all lied, and who are we kidding if we haven't, right? And I don't mean just little white lies, right? Those white lies that are sometimes there to maybe protect people or hide a little something from them. I believe in certain cases, like lying to a child about something that's really traumatic or a crisis is okay, and things like that. But it's funny you mentioned, Juji, about how you were sleeping with this, this was your ex-husband and he didn't know about this, yet maybe he did, or maybe he had a curiosity about it or suspected, because I myself was in a marriage where my ex lied all the time, but it was very apparent to me. And he denied it all the time, or he tried to. There were way too many times that he was busted about little things too. It was little things. He would hide really things that were so not secrets or big things or embarrassing things even. But it was something that I lived with for a very long time, knowing that and not liking it, but not really knowing that or realizing that this was a terrible, terrible way to live and be with somebody. You cannot have a very loyal, honest relationship when there are so many lies, intertwined. So for me, and at the same time, I got to say that I was probably lying to myself throughout the marriage, kind of trying to blanket all of that to the outside world and make it seem like everything was okay, when it really wasn't. I had so much turmoil inside of me, living with a liar, and it's where he came from, and there was a lot of lying, I believe, in his past, and it's something that you just kind of look at, and again, once again, I always say, like, you remember the little child in him, and this helps me to not put blame, although I had choices in where I wanted to be in this relationship or not be in it. And took many, many years to make those decisions.
Wow, Lee. Well, you just completely covered the topic that I was going to talk about. And that is the lying to yourself thing. Because when we think about lying, we're just always like, white lie, yeah, you look great in that dress, or like, inconsequential things like that. But when you realize, because I didn't, and when I started going for therapy, my therapist gave me this acronym for the word denial, and it stands for don't even notice I am lying. I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't even notice that I was lying to myself. Like, so many years of doing that. And that's because, and I know we can all relate to this because we did a whole episode about people pleasing and not wanting to hurt the other person and having delusional hope and thinking things will get better. And it's just like this, just the mounting of lies to myself that it was okay when it wasn't. When the lid was blown off of that, I was like, holy shit. And just the clarity. So I think clarity comes a lot of times from when the lies just get so heavy, whether it's external, like Juju, what you were talking about, or to ourselves, it just gets too heavy at some point. And you're like, it's not, either it's not worth it when you come to your own realization that it's not worth it, or something happens and a situation explodes and you're like, okay. And then you have the clarity and you just have to take responsibility at the end of the day. You have to. That's the way to freedom.
Shira, honestly, what I really want to point out about what you just said is that even though I knew I was lying, there had to be a reconciliation within me. And the way that I reconciled lying is that it's going to get better and he'll never have to know.
Exactly.
He'll never have to find out, because to me, what it was is that, like, also another lie I had to tell myself is that he can't handle it. It's not his problem. He shouldn't have to bear this burden. I am being the strong one in the relationship. I am being the person who's protecting my dear, sweet, innocent husband, who is also an adult, and by the way, 10 years older than me. I'm protecting my dear, sweet husband from this incredible burden, which, by the way, if one person in a relationship is suffering that much and not, communicating it to the other person, like, what kind of relationship is that?
Yeah.
Definitely not somewhere I felt supported and like I could be fully expressed in terms of my own whatever was going on. But yeah, we do have to lie to ourselves in order to even tell big lies like that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes the perception is, if somebody is a liar, it's like they believe their own lies. A lot of the time, that's what's happening.
For sure. Hey, Zhuji, I'm wondering, you said you didn't think he can handle it. Did you think he couldn't handle the lies, or for you being honest that you were lying, or, kind of revealing it? Or was it the truth of what was going on, or what you were thinking that he couldn't handle?
Well, something I want to point out is that, like, there wasn't consistently any sort of anything that I had to lie about. So in this case, it was more of a withholding that I'm talking about. There were a lot of little lies about where I was, because I was like out, drinking away my stress. And I would consistently say that I was at work late because okay, if you're constantly out drinking away your stress, what are you so stressed about? So if I had to answer that question, it would be like the domino effect to, well, the business isn't going as well as I had hoped. And oh, by the way, I took out 2 other loans, like things of that nature, that would have been, catastrophic to the image that I was cultivating. And again, something I didn't feel like he could handle if I told him, because he was very militant about money. He was very like, he would wake up every morning and balance his checkbook. And so I see this like very responsible human being, and I'm like, well, I'm protecting my own image. I'm protecting him according to me. I'm protecting him from seeing all of the things that I'm going through. It was just, it was.
Can I just say something?
It was a dumpster fire, okay?
Well, this is so weird because for some reason, the name Madoff just popped into my head, right? And the reason it popped into my head is because the things that I've read and seen, and listen, I don't know everything about what happened. I know what happened at the end of the day, but I don't think the intention at the outset was for it to become the catastrophic event that it was, and how many people it's also like, it'll get better. I'll do this and I'll pay those people back. And then at some point it becomes a runaway train and you cannot rein it in. And then you really pay for it. So, look, lessons are always learned along the way. And I say, whenever I learn a big lesson, I'm like, thank God I learned it now and not when I'm 90, because there are things you can do about it. And you can't even go back and go, oh, if I hit like the regret, oh, if I just told the truth, then this wouldn't happen and that wouldn't happen. It's like, no, it happened. What are you going to do starting right now? Right now is all you ever have.
Yeah, the runaway train thing really resonates. I didn't set out for any of this to happen. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're like swimming in the soup of this, like.
Yeah. And then you're just stuck and you're like, shit, what do I do? And then a lie to cover the other lie. Ugh, it's
right. They say you weave a web. You weave a web that you just can't get out of after a while.
Kim,
come on. Hit us with a lie. Come on.
Don't lie to us.
It's just funny because, as you guys know, that I'm recovering from COVID and I've been obsessed with Ozark. I don't know if you've all seen that series, but anyway,
my boyfriend has, and obsessed with it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of when we think of our own like patterns and past with lies, like to watch a show like that, or to watch a movie like The Tinder Swindler or something, where it's like lying is a whole other extreme. It really does make you feel better about yourself. But I was a little nervous about this episode, to be honest and not lie, because there's someone in my family who has a mental illness, and it's just easier to have this person in my life and have it be the least amount of conflict as humanly possible by lying. And I genuinely mean that. Like, anyone can argue with me that it's not the answer. But unfortunately, in this particular situation, I feel it is. I even went to therapy about it, like, many times. And even like a therapist once told me that, like, whatever coping mechanism I can come up with and craft to live a path of least resistance with this person. I'm not saying the therapist told me to lie, because she didn't. But I think what we were talking about in that particular moment that she said that was like, if a coping mechanism is to, let's say this person calls me and I don't answer, and hours later I text, hey, I'm busy, and I'm not. I just don't want to talk to that person and go through potential conflict. Like, that's a coping mechanism. That's a way for me to deal with that person. If I'm choosing not have them in my life, I'm choosing to keep them in my life, there's ways to deal with certain behaviors that are irrational. So honestly, like, I live with lies every day because of this particular family member, and I'm not the only one in my family who does. Pretty much we all do.
And
Yeah,
you
but
know,
Kim-
I
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Lee.
think that if the extent of your lying is that, like, I'm busy, I can't talk right now, when you are free, I don't see that as a bad thing at all. It's maybe keeping your distance. And, to me, lying has a malicious intent sometimes, a very selfish, malicious intent sometimes, and not always, but it's either very selfish or it's, I think in some cases, maybe like yours, perhaps, because I know you, and I know that what you are doing is not ever going to hurt that person, and it's not ever, you're not doing this to hide information that might be important for them to know, or to lie, about important things that are happening.
No, you're right, Lee. Like, there isn't any malicious intent there at all.
Of course.
And I don't believe that the lies are doing anything other than protecting myself. I
Well,
like to
can I
think
just-
you're not affecting that person because they don't know. So yeah.
I completely relate to what you just said, Kim, because I too have a situation like that, almost exactly like that. And it's interesting to kind of flip the notion of it being lying, because the truth is that that situation is never going to change, right? That person is never going to change. So you have to change, and you have to keep your peace, and you have to find alternate ways of living your life, because the flip side is guilt. Oh, well, I really should be with that person because they're in my family, and yada, yada. But if you look at it as you're being truthful with yourself about the reality of the situation, you're finding, it's kind of paraphrasing what you said, because it is a coping mechanism. I can totally see that. But for me, yes, it is lying. Like, if someone says, oh, are you around? And you're like, no, I'm not, but can we do it like in 2 weeks or whatever, or whatever you choose to do. To me, there's a truth about understanding how a toxic or a negative situation or person in your life, that's never going to change. So you have to change. And so I just flip it from, I don't necessarily look at that as lying. It is lying. I get that it's lying, But I think, we all talk about our relationship with ourselves, and you and I have had a lot of growth. I think we've all had a lot of growth in that area of having a good relationship with ourselves. And sometimes those kinds of things are required. The lying.
Yeah, it's
Okay, but is it really lying if what you're saying is, I don't have energy for this right now?
Exactly.
You don't
It's like
have to
taking
be
care of
busy.
yourself.
You don't
Right.
have to be busy. You just don't have energy for this person at this moment. And that doesn't mean that you're like, like in the
Lying.
middle of work, or it doesn't mean that you're like busy doing something with your house. Like you could literally be sitting and watching TV and see that this person is calling you and being like, I don't have the energy for this right now. This is not what I want to spend this free time doing. You could say that to me. Hey, Juji, like, I don't have the energy to talk to you right now. And even though I am a person who would understand you saying that, even if your feet are kicked up in your sweatpants watching Ozark, and the other person might not. So saying that you're busy, mentally conjures up something that requires your attention that isn't television. That's true. But saying that you don't have energy for something right at this moment is, to me, like barely a lie, like not tip of the iceberg lie. If you're like, I'm in Arkansas right now, like towing a field, and that's not even close to true, then, that's a little bit more elaborate than you need to get. I'm busy.
And it probably goes beyond just, I can't talk right now. I'm sure it goes beyond that, but I totally agree with the girls of that. You're doing it to keep yourself in a safer space with this person and protecting yourself. And you're not doing it to hurt the other person or.
Yeah, it's like no harm, no foul.
Yeah. So
Right,
really,
know
it's
what you're
not,
doing.
you're not lying.
You're not lying. You're off the hook, Kim.
It's
You're
a
off the
wrap.
hook.
It's a non-lie.
All
Okay, so none of us are liars.
And I do just want to add that there's like, it's so obvious to me when it feels bad, because I've had times with my own husband where like, I don't lie, but there's something I'm withholding that I know I have to tell him soon because I can't physically not do that. Like it just hurts too much to like not tell him, or like you guys, or, it's very obvious that there's such a different, every person in our life, it's like just so different,
Yeah, we have a different loyalty, I think, at a different level to different people in our lives. And yeah.
And
I
thank
totally-
God for all of you.
Mm.
Well, honestly, this was an amazing conversation about lying. And I think this is a good place to wrap up. If you've enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe to our channel. Be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. We'll see you soon. Stay safe, stay well, and thank you for watching.